Hello, I'm Deborah Sword. This recently happened to me, and maybe it's happened to you as well. I walked into a party where I didn't know anyone. Groups of people were chatting, and someone looked at me, then turned away. They said something, and the group turned and looked at me, and then went back to chatting. My first thought was, "Oh, my outfit's weird. I'm awkward. They're judging me. I wish I hadn't come. How soon can I sneak away?" Are any of those thoughts reality? I might have been correctly interpreting their looks. I certainly acted as if I knew what they thought. But what happened when I got brave enough to talk to them proved I hadn't been right at all. Perhaps you've heard the expression that thoughts aren't reality. I've certainly said it. What does it mean for your conflict competence? Well, we act on our thoughts and beliefs as if they're facts. In a conflict, we dig into our positions and make decisions based on beliefs that we hope will serve our best interests. It's an automatic pattern. Have a thought. The thought brings up a belief. The belief is certain it's true. This truth calls it a fact. The fact forms a strategy. The strategy makes a decision. The decision acts as if the thought was true from the start. And you think you've been thinking all of this when in fact it was automatic. Each step of this automatic pattern sustains the conflict. Changing the automatic pattern is the conflict competency that I want to talk about. You begin changing this pattern with self awareness of that first thought. Remember me wishing I hadn't gone to the party because a group of people looked at me? Was I being judged? Maybe. Or maybe the group was waiting for a friend to arrive, so they looked at me. Nope, they said she's not the friend, and they returned to chatting. Or they're maybe waiting for a stranger who's joining them. They look at me in case I'm that person. Nope, she doesn't match the description, and they return to chatting. Or maybe one sees me and says, "Hey, she reminds me of Pat." So they look to see if I remember Pat, and they turn to chatting. Were they checking out the new arrival? Yes, but it turns out there was no judgment in it, as I discovered later when I chatted with their group. If I didn't know the other person's story, I'll believe my version of their story unless I question the basis of my belief. At that party, the basis of my belief was my feeling awkward. So I wrote their group's story as being judgmental of my appearance. What types of thoughts are automatic, meaning you aren't aware of them unless you decide to be? Biases are automatic, for example. Here are three thought biases that direct your beliefs and your decisions if you're unaware of them. The first is the halo effect. It's your overall impression of someone you meet because one thing about them makes a positive impression, so you assume a lot of positive things about them. It's not a conscious decision. I'll like a person and think well of them because their smile reminds me of a favorite aunt. Your favorable opinion of one thing about them generalizes that opinion to liking them overall. They're funny, you like that, so they must be smart, nice, and good company. That might not be true, but you've added the halo. If they disappoint your expectations, it can cause conflict. The second thought bias is the horn effect. You form an overall negative impression of someone based on one trait that makes a negative impression. Again, it's not a conscious decision to dislike someone and think badly of them because their handshake is weak, or they slouch, or they remind you of a mean uncle. You generalize your unfavorable opinion of one thing about them to more traits. You dislike one thing, so they must be dishonest, unreliable, and selfish, for example. That might not be true, but you've added the devil horns. If they discover your dislike, it can cause conflict. The third thought bias is blind spots, and we've talked about those before. Blind spots are what you can't see or know because of who you are and the limits on your perception. There are experiences I can't have because my worldview is based on where I grew up, how I was educated, who I met, which hobbies I pursued. What I think is illogical makes perfect sense to others. Assumptions and biases fill in the blind spots. When I think I have an objective opinion, it likely means I'm not paying attention to the many facts I don't know about the topic, not recognizing that my opinion is subject to my biases. If I judge people based on my blind spot, it can cause conflict. The halo effect, the horn effect, and blind spots are three automatic thought biases that can derail conflict competencies. If you don't know how they affect your decisions, especially in conflicts, you're more likely to irritate the person you're in conflict with. If you believe you have no biases and your decisions aren't influenced by your biases, that's a potential blind spot. You might find it harder to improve the quality of your relationships. Here are three suggestions for managing your thought biases to be more conflict competent. First, question your thoughts and beliefs in case you're creating your own obstacles to improving your conflict competence. Second, before you react to someone you're in conflict with, ask a question about their perspective so you understand what thought, belief, and bias influences their behavior. To them, their position makes sense. Reframe your differences in perspectives as underlying beliefs, not hard facts to argue over. Third, if you've made a mistake about someone because you assigned a halo or horns based on your impression, admit it. Apologize if that would help. These are conflict competencies that can improve the quality of your relationships. Thank you for listening. I hope you subscribe to our podcast, like it, share it, tell others that we talk about how to improve the quality of your relationships by improving the conflict competencies you already have. Thank you again.